I just believe in the process, and we're going to win going through the process.
Now, Bills Mafia, it's time for the main event. So sit back and enjoy the show.
Hello, welcome to another episode of Red, White and Buffalo Blues, a UK Bills podcast, Bills news with a UK twist. And we're back on video as well as audio. And I'm joined with Alex. And Alex, are you on holiday or something? Or what's going on in the background?
Yeah, no, I bought a church, and that's where I record from now.
So you're not. Where's the harmonic organ music? Where's the echo in your voice?
I've converted my dining room, which, who eats in a dining room? We eat in the living room in front of the TV. I converted my dining room to my office now. So, because I got a new computer, so I'm in the office. I'm in the office now of my dining room.
I bet your missus loves that.
Yeah, she uses this table for, storage. So why not put it to actual good use?
That's true. That's true. But are you excited anyway? We're now into the full swing of preseason. We've had 2 preseason games down, 2 victories. Getting close to the season. Is your excitement building?
Absolutely. We didn't really do very many off-season shows because, I wasn't there for an off-season show. I couldn't be asked. I said this before, and I'm just going to say it again. So sorry if you've heard this before, but we're good now. There is no real need for off-season analysis. It's not, what are we going to get out of this position? What are we going to get out of that position? Is this rookie going to help? Do we need to rely on this person? We didn't get to sign this guy. We signed this guy. Is he going to be good enough? The whole roster, so many pieces from the roster last year are back, and we added small pieces. So we know what to expect. We know what people can do. It's just, let's get to week 1, Last year we did team previews to see, how are we going to match up with these guys? How are we going to match up against that team? Who gives a shit? I'm ready to steamroll this league. All right. I'm ready for week 1. And I don't need any analysis of, so how does your defense match up against our offense? It doesn't. Our offense is going to steamroll you. That's where I'm at in my mindset. So I'm just excited that we're finally playing games. So now I'm back into it. I'm reading, I'm writing, I'm watching, and I'm in it. So yesterday's game I didn't watch the Lions game because I just wasn't there yet, And plus first preseason game, whatever. But this one I watched because it had storyline. It had Mitch. There was a lot of talk in the Lions game about D-line play, so I wanted to see what guys were going to do. I heard that Russo was up, Basham was down, so I wanted to see for myself now. Because that's one thing that does matter, and I think that's the first thing that you wanted to talk about was the D-line focus, right?
Yeah, I mean, we've had the 2 games. We've had it was a 15-16 win just against the Lions, and then the nice reasonable hour. We actually had pretty much demolish the Bears. And
that's also why I didn't watch the first game, the hour, but this game was at a perfect time.
Yeah, I mean, it's this D-line, it looks really good now. I mean, so much so that we had issues with game pressure on the edge, up the middle. Okay, the first half of the game against Chicago pretty much was against their first team offense. Bell, I think, a couple. And obviously Lions, they were playing pretty much their first team as well. And you can see the amount of pressure we're getting on the edge. Russo, I think he's going to make me eat my words. Because draft process, I wasn't 100% sure on him. And I've even gone on to did a podcast about a week ago, which is, I don't know when that's due to come out, but saying that I wasn't too keen on Russo at the first round, just because of his history. Injury, 1-year wonder, but he's come
well, you
out.
weren't the only one either, I mean, that was the narrative on him. He's going to be a project, and he still could be. I mean, people, you got to take the preseason with a grain of salt. We're hyped right now. We're on cloud 9. We're ready for, like I said at the start of this, I'm ready to go demolish anybody. but it is just the preseason. Rousseau looked good. I'm interested to see how he gets reps and how we use him still. Because right now it's just, hey, go.
Yeah.
There's not a lot of scheming going on.
Well, they showed a few different looks really in the Chicago game. If you saw on one play, they actually had Ed Oliver actually as a defensive end pushed Epinesa into the defensive tackle spot. So they're opening it up quite a lot.
Yeah.
And the one thing I really like is how Obada's just come in. I mean, everyone's beginning the season, or when he was signed, saying, and when we had Rousseau and Basham saying he's on the edge, he's not going to make the squad and all that. But these two games,
right? Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, on the bubble. And these 2 games that he's had, and what we've seen in training camp, probably puts him almost, in my opinion, as a lock. I mean, obviously, I'm going to say that as a UK fan, wanted to see him in there, but you speak to the likes of Matt Perino, Ryan Talbot, and those sort of guys, and they're saying almost the exact same thing. That it's going to be hard what we're going to do on this D line because who knows? We could have 6, 7 defensive ends and only 3 defensive tackles going into the season.
Yeah, no, there's a lot of talent on that D line now. I was gonna save this question, but it's something that I've teased for a while, and I guess I'll just throw it in here now. Do we even care that Jerry Hughes is still on this roster? Do we need him? Look at what we have.
I think after next season, I think in my opinion, you let him walk at the end of next season.
But if it's Epinesa, Rousseau, and Obada, that's your 3-guy rotation. Is Hughes 4th, or does Hughes slot in above those guys? Obviously, being the veteran, he does, respectfully slot above probably all 3 of those guys. Yeah. But with the hype that they're building and the price tag that Hughes has, you clearly don't do it to break up the locker room. He's a very integral part of the locker room. But when you're looking at production on the field, I forgot that we had Jerry Hughes last night because everybody else was doing good enough.
I think
we need the money.
I think it's not helping that he's it. Possibly. I mean, there's something that could go around on that. I think the one thing we've got to look at is the fact that he's not had much training camp. He's been injured, so
he doesn't need it though.
Well, yeah, but I mean, even so, that does, I guess, that can play into your mind a little bit. He's been injured. These guys are now starting to look a bit more sharper. I mean, as I say, Epinesa has just taken that leap, and maybe it is a case that they've actually had training camp, actual proper training camp, rather than COVID restrictions. And also,
I was super low on him last year, but I'm really happy to see him exploding off the line now.
But I still say they're going to keep him for this year. Because, I mean, with the Josh Allen contract extension, it doesn't kick in. Yeah. Not for this year, next year, the year after. We've got another 2-3 years before it kicks in. So we've got enough, we can gain enough cap space before his contract kicks in. So I would say I'd even keep Hughes and Addison for the year. And then at the end of the season.
Because aren't Addison and Butler like locks to get cut, I feel?
Butler, I would say yes. Addison, I'd probably say no. I think they might keep him.
But that you keep him, and then Rousseau's riding the bench, Obada's getting 10 snaps a game, Basham's inactive every game. What are you doing, right?
I think what McDermott was saying, especially with these veterans, is actually having these youngsters, Rousseau, Basham, Epinesa, Obada to an extent come in, means that we're keeping that rotation. He loves to rotate on that D line. So maybe it's a good thing.
Staying fresh is important.
Maybe it's a good thing that Addison and Hughes may not play every single game, which means they're more fresher and fresher as we go through the season. Because remember, we've got an extra season on there, extra games. So 17 games.
Yeah.
You've got 2, possibly 3 games in the playoffs. and all that. And if you have just your rookies going into that end season, the last part of the season, where positions and games sort of matter to determine where you're going to seed, you're going to need that presence on that side just to spell. Because if one of those two, if we say we cut Edison and Hughes, and one of those two actually decide to, Russo and Epinesa, they pretty much tailed off, and Basham and Obada couldn't really call in.
Mm-hmm.
You really lost.
You need to have, no, that makes sense. That makes sense. I mean, especially for a guy like Rousseau who didn't play last year, how is his fitness? Can he do 17 games? Really important question. So maybe you rep him a lot at the start of the season, and then you just kind of, rest him later, and then Hughes kind of picks up, because Hughes is probably going to need 4 games to maybe get into it. So it's a good point. I mean, this isn't a show where we're analyzing the roster. And no. I want everyone to know that I'm not an advocate for cutting Jerry Hughes. I just think that it's a really interesting thing to talk about. So back to the Bears game specifically.
Well, I think
there's like 10 guys we could talk about on the D-line, right?
Yeah, I mean, Ed Oliver, he's come into it. He's come into his own now. Until his injury, Harrison Phillips actually he looked back to his best on there, which really makes that interior, the whole D-line thing. I think Butler is pretty much gone. I think it was unfortunate that Justin Zimmer's picked up an injury, because I think he's on that roster bubble. I think you got a lot with Starr and Ed Oliver as your defensive tackles.
Well, there's a lot of love for Zimmer. I mean, the guy's got a motor. He's all over the field. The fans love him. Players love him.
I mean,
I thought Phillips was toast. Like over the last 2 years, I thought that, like, all right, here's too high of expectations for him. I mean, it's not his fault that he's a white defensive tackle, and we're like, oh my God, it's Kyle Williams 2.0. And I think that's what we did to him. So that's why I was kind of writing him off. I'm like, experiment over. But he's really done everything he can to get himself back in the conversation. And like we said earlier, there's just too many guys. So it's going to be really interesting to see what they do. And, based off injuries as well, you have that IR with designation to return. That could be very helpful in the first 8 weeks of the season.
Yeah, I mean, it's good where we're at. I mean, there are positions we'll go into in a little bit more detail. We'll stick on the defense on there. The one thing that is starting to be a little bit more concerning now is that cornerback depth. Yeah, I mean, we know that White, Wallace are going to be your locks, and they're going to be your starters week 1 against the Steelers. Dane Jackson, he's been hyped up in training camp, and I was one that actually thinks he can actually do something. He's sort of slipped a tiny bit, but after than Johnson and nickel, that other cornerback spot, that 5th cornerback spot, that is up in the air. I mean, Saron Neal, they're obviously keeping him for special teams, because he's a special teams ace. But in both games against Detroit and the Bears, he looked slow, lost. He actually was the one that gave up that touchdown for the Bears in the game.
I watched that replay, and it looked like it was decent coverage. It was a great throw, and it was a great catch. I mean, you're not going to make every play. Trey White has given up touchdowns, so you can't expect him to make every play.
Oh, yeah. But
his hands weren't in the right position. If he got his hands up at the right time, he breaks up that pass. I mean, it was just a really good catch. I'm not willing to write him off on that one play alone, but it hasn't been that one play. Like you said, it's been bits and pieces here over the last 2 games. He's getting beat in training camp. So, but I mean, that's what you're going to expect out of your, 3rd, 4th corner. These guys aren't starters.
That's the battle that's the battle that last game of the season, or last game of preseason against the Packers will show up. I mean, Nick McLeod, undrafted free agent, he had a good game against the Bears on there. maybe he's that push. I mean, you've got obviously Wild Goose, who was our our 6th-round pick in there. That's going to be your interesting battle to watch in the Packers game. What happens with that last spot? Because I can see him keeping 5 cornerbacks and four safeties. So you've got the lock of White, Wallace, Jackson, and Johnson. That 5th one, you're giving it to Neal because of the special teams. But I've seen a couple of special teams game series last night, and McLeod did play quite a bit on there. Well, he's not at Neal's level, but you can't really.
Well, yeah, I mean, they're doing everything they can to see what players can do and where they can fit. That's what preseason is for, you know?
Yeah.
I mean, hell, Nate Peterman started the whole game last night for his team. You got to see what you have in your players.
Exactly.
I honestly want to go back and watch that game. I can't. I love Nate Peterman. What a player. Oh, he threw 2 interceptions. You love to see it. You love to see it.
But I mean, we're looking good on most positions. I mean, linebacker again was a bit behind Milano and Edmonds, and to a lesser extent AJ Klein. But I mean, that hit by Smith, that was not a penalty whatsoever.
It depends on who you're a fan of, isn't it? I mean, Bills fans are obviously going to say it's not a penalty. Bears fans are going to say it's a penalty. I think impartial fans are kind of 50-50 on it. Fields in his drop back lowers his, he dips, his knees bend. So the angle, he's coming at him like this, and then Fields bends his knees. So that's what happens. You kind of want him to go maybe for more of a wrap tackle, put the shoulder into his gut, or he put his shoulder into his chest. When you put your shoulder into someone's chest, there's going to be helmet to helmet every time. Honestly, though, I think if Fields' helmet is strapped on a little tighter, that's not a penalty.
And his
looked bad.
And his bandana as well.
Yeah, it just looked bad. I mean, it looked beautiful. I loved watching it. But it looked bad for the refs, and that's why they called it.
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting because I mean that the linebacker you're going to have, as I say, you've got obviously Matakevich is safe as well, special teams ace, Klein, Edmonds, and Milano. I mean, Smith's doing some good work out there. Dodson's done some good work. Terrell Adams. So we've got that depth. And when people came into the season, they're thinking, okay, what have we got? A linebacker. We've got quite good players. I mean, Terrell Adams is no slouch. Maybe he's not shown it that much in preseason so far, but what is it, leading tackler for the Houston team?
Don't get too excited. There's a lot of players that have to get cut.
True.
So let's not try and say that everybody deserves a roster spot at that depth position. But I just want one last note going back to corner. I'm really surprised that they're happy with the players that they have. Because after Trey White, Levi Wallace has big enough deficiencies that teams can exploit. Johnson, Dane Jackson, and Taron Johnson also have exploits. I'm just really surprised that they didn't do anything about that. I mean, we spent so much effort on the D-line, and a good D-line assists your secondary. So if the D-line gets to the quarterback, then the corners have a lot easier job. So maybe that was the mentality of the coaching staff and Brandon Beane in the offseason.
Yeah, I mean, you're looking at it. You're looking at it. You, as you said earlier, with linebacker depth and all that, there are cuts coming. So there are going to be guys which maybe are more favourable to the scheme and couldn't be picked up somewhere else that may get a look in come cut day. I mean, they've got a cut down to 75 by Tuesday, and then the Tuesday after, you go down to 53.
Yep.
So there are times where you maybe see someone that scrimped out on the waiver wire, But I think next year in the draft, I think that's where they're going to really.
Oh, it's going to be the first round pick. Absolutely.
Yeah. Because, I mean, next year there's some good draft picks coming out at quarterback, and I think you're starting to hit Trey White's middle of his contract. So you're going to be taking out a lot more cap on there. And if you do a double dip, maybe that'll be down there. But that's a story for later in the season.
So we didn't hit on the biggest storyline of the game yet. Most people led with this, but we chose not to. The Nickelodeon most valuable player, Mitch Trubisky, in his revenge game. And I say revenge game with a smirk on my face because it is the frickin' preseason, so kind of let's all pump the brakes a bit. But I tweeted last night, and it's one of my favorite tweets, and I'm gonna pump my chest on this one. Preseason is meant for the players to show their talent, and it's like player versus player. Whereas in the regular season, it's player and coach versus player and coach. Coaches aren't showing you the best that they have in the preseason, but the players are. And holy hell, we came to play. We came to fight for roster spots. What the hell was Chicago doing? If any of those guys want to make a roster after they're cut, they just looked like complete and utter trash.
Yeah, I mean,
sorry, rubbish. This is a UK podcast.
It's the first half. I think the Bears pretty much ran out, at least for the first quarter and start bits of the second quarter. They did run out pretty much their first team unit.
Yeah.
And the fact that Trubisky actually managed to put up help lead to 36 points.
4 touchdown drives, baby. It was pretty.
Yeah. In the first quarter shows that
first half.
We're now safe and knowledge that we've got a serviceable backup that touch wood, something happens. You've got someone that can game manage us through that through those few games that he may potentially be out. So it's interesting to see what they actually do. I mean, if he pulls out against the Packers again, maybe he's going to get trade calls. But I think Beam will probably just reject those unless it's something miraculous that he actually gets from us. But
hey,
he's
last night
in the shop window.
Matt Barkley, 12 of 16, 115 yards, 2 touchdowns, a QB rating of 134.1. So, controversy. No, Matt Barkley, Mitch Trubisky is an upgrade over Matt Barkley in almost every sense, especially with what I consider Trubisky, even though this is his, 4th, 5th year in the league, I don't think he's developed yet. And I think with our coaching staff, being known for what they did with Allen, I think we can make Trubisky better. And I think we saw a really smart, logical, drive structure from him, decision-making from him. His heart was 100% in that game last night, and he stepped up. He didn't crumble under the pressure, what you saw from him in Chicago often. So I'm just really happy that, he's getting his redemption story. And, if we don't trade him, which I don't think we do because there's trash behind him, he's going to get paid next offseason, I think. So good for him. And what a great game.
So you Webb over from over Webb for the practice squad and the next man up if they have to bring one of those guys up if something does happen to one of the two, to either Allen or Trubisky.
Did he really ask me that question? Did he ask me that question? Who cares? Oh, I do not want to talk about third quarterback. It's bad. It's bad. It doesn't matter. They're both bad.
Well, to be honest,
call Derek Anderson. Okay. If it comes down to that, they're going to bring someone else in. Those guys should not start an NFL game regular season at any time.
Well, definitely after the Lions game, there's I'm surprised at both of them standing with the fact that the one person that should have been cut last week that hadn't been cut, and that's good old Mr. Hart.
Yeah, I mean, you bring that up though, but we don't know what Spencer Brown's situation is.
Yeah.
So if he is really hurt, then Bobby Hart season.
I think you can find a serviceable player on the waiver wire, really from cuts that's
Oh
going to
yeah,
be
someone will get cut that
used.
is better than Bobby Hart, and I absolutely think we'll bring someone in because he's going to be in the first round of cuts. I don't care what our depth is; he's going to be part of the first round cuts, and we'll bring someone
Well,
else in.
technically, it's the second round of cuts because he was still at the
Yes,
first round
yes,
last.
okay, yeah, okay, yeah, 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 yeah,
But
yeah.
is the lack of depth on O line now becoming concerns? I mean, they struggled when they got down to their third string guys against the Lions.
That'll
Second
happen.
half, second half against the Bears, they were sloppy as anything in that second half up front. I mean, if obviously Spencer Brown had a brilliant game at left tackle, you're lining up pretty much opposite Khalil Mack. And Khalil Mack, we know, is one of the best
Yep.
linebackers, pass rushers in the NFL, and he held him up. He actually did not let him get anywhere near Trubisky.
But Khalil Mack at 70% effort, maybe. You know, you got to be honest here with preseason, right?
You got to be honest, but still, to go up against that in one of your first games starting at left tackle, you're facing at even at 70%.
Yeah, oh yeah.
You're
Mack
gonna
at
get that.
70% is still above average in the NFL. So
But is it?
100%. I mean, kudos to Spencer Brown. I'm trying not to take anything away from him.
Yeah.
So,
I mean, the interior side, that's the one that really is worrying for me because you'd have Ford, you'd have Feliciano, Butker. To be honest, in the games I've seen him, he hasn't really impressed me too much in preseason. And after that, you've got Jamil Douglas, you've got Taylor Gaunther, you've got I don't know who the other guards are really on there, but is there a concern to you the fact that we've got pretty much our tackles, set our center, we've got our set first team
sure.
offense on there with Dawkins, Feliciano, who seems to be playing left rather than right guard, Morse, Ford, and Williams. You got Brown, who's going to be serviceable, who's going to be your swing tackle. After that, are
Barring
you
injury.
concerned that one injury to that could derail, especially on the interior, could derail the season and put a bit of risk to Josh Allen, even though we know he can escape?
That's the nature of the league, though.
Hmm.
No team has good backups.
Yeah.
That's just the way it goes, you know? I mean, 5 starting offensive linemen per team, you know. How many teams in the league, you know? I mean, there's bad starters. So if there's bad starters, there's not going to be good backups.
Yeah.
It's just having the correct expectation, understanding of, you know, what is there on that team. So, yeah, any injury to any offensive lineman is going to derail the running game and put Josh Allen into, you know, trouble, danger. So, of course, I'm worried about it. I mean, there is no team that's like, oh man, if this guy goes down, we'll be all right. That doesn't exist. So you got to just hope for health.
Yeah, talk about the run game. I mean, Devin Singletary, he looks back to what it was in his rookie year, maybe a little better, but what has he actually done? Okay, yes, you put it in there. There is a second and third team from both teams, but he still looks a lot more sharper. Looks like he's actually got a bit more speed on there, and obviously bulked up quite a bit on there. I think that's now looking good, especially with Zach Moss still injured. And one name I'm going to put on there, my favorite, Reggie Gilliam. Do you think the fact that he can play tight end, he can now run the ball, as we can see, he can actually act as a fullback and play special teams? Do you think they get rid of Tywan Jones? Do you think it's Breeder, Moss, Singletary, Gilliam as your 4 running backs?
That's too many. That's too many. There's only so many roster spots, man. It's crazy. We're going to be disappointed after the next 2 cut days. So here's what I see from our running backs. Moss is the guy who gets like first, second down. Breed is the third down guy who is going to be great in the passing game. His speed in the passing game is going to be a huge help to our team in the screen game, dump offs, stuff like that, open field.
Yeah.
Devin Singletary going into the season is like, holy shit, where's my place on this roster? So he's doing everything he can to take over for what we're kind of anointing for Moss, because we drafted Moss, after Singletary. We're like, all right, Singletary didn't work. Let's get Moss in here and he'll take over after Singletary and we'll eventually cut Singletary. That's kind of what people have been saying. But Singletary's like, no. This is still my team. I can do everything. And that's what he's showing in this offseason, this preseason. So it depends on how much importance you put on special teams. Obviously, we know that McDermott does for Taiwan Jones' roster position.
Yeah.
Does this team need a fullback?
It seems
we don't run I form,
It's an extra blocker on there. I mean, you're not
anything
really...
goal line. But anything goal line is Josh Allen.
No, I get that. I mean, it's a good thing with Gillum is that he is that versatile player. I mean, he's at three players.
So the biggest thing for him would be making the roster as a tight end, then sparingly be used as a fullback, right? So Knox, Hollister, Doyle. What are you, Sweeney? Sorry, Doyle? Sweeney. What are you doing at tight end behind Hollister and Knox? Are you giving that to Gillum? Because that's where he can make the roster, not at tailback.
I think at the moment, with the fact that apparently Tommy Sweeney's walking around in the boots, got foot injuries and all that,
he goes back on the IR.
Yeah, I think Gillum will get a spot on there. Whether what happens when Sweeney comes back, I'm not sure on that, but I can.
They can probably carry all those backs for the first few weeks of the season.
This is why we say this is actually good to find that we're in a strong position that we have these difficult decisions to make. We've got to cut players where they may be fan favorites on there that actually get through. It's one of those games, one of those seasons and rosters that we are going to let a fan favorite go, and we're all going to say, why do we keep him over him? He's not bringing that much into there. But I think what McDermott really values, I think the ball came out last week and said that having a fullback in there has actually helped the game at all. And you saw what happened when we had DeMarco in. Our run game was a lot more better than when the years we didn't have.
Oh, yeah. The run game 2 years ago was better than the run game last year, absolutely.
So there is a way. And also, you can use Gillum on play actions. You can do a fullback dump. You have play action, have Gillum go out to block, and then actually go out untouched.
I think we have to talk about Gillum with someone else. We have to bring someone else on here to talk about Gillum, because you're just going to defend him no matter what. All right. According to you, he's a lock for the roster, but I think maybe he's more, he's definitely more bubble than you think. But you're the Gillum apologist, so you're not impartial here.
I agree. He's on the bubble. There's no doubt he's on the bubble.
Yeah.
But it's one of those ones where he's on the bubble, but he's leaning more towards, my opinion, he's leaning more towards being a lock than actually being a cut. But he's on the bubble. I agree, he's on the bubble.
Okay. Speaking of fan favorites and getting cut, we also need to talk about Touchdown Jesus, Jake Cumrow.
Yeah.
Look, we love him because he's got flair, and who doesn't love a player like that? But I think it's really important to think about and understand that he's been cut by multiple teams before. He's 6th or 7th on our roster for a reason. Realistically, how many targets does he get in a season? 20? Let's not spend more than a minute on someone who's only going to get 20 targets in a season. If he gets cut, Aaron Rodgers couldn't keep Cumrow on his team.
Yeah. So you've got.
What does that say for the guy?
So you've got Diggs, Diggs, Beasley, Davis, Sanders, McKenzie. They're your locks. Do you carry 6 or do you carry 7? That's people been clamoring for 7. and having the likes of Kumaro and Stevenson.
We only got 53 roster spots, people.
Who do you have? Is that a sixth spot really a thing we got to watch out for in the third game? Because even though they're not going to get it, you're going to get someone like Hodgins, who last season was on IR, showed a bit of flash, he's a little bit injured there. Do you keep him on the 53 as your sixth man? So at least then he's with the team, he's developing, he'll get the odd snaps here and there. Because you say sixth wide receiver, you're not going to get that many tackles, so it's easy to get him in there. Or do you use Stevenson, who we saw went for 79 yards, punt touchdown? Do you keep him on there, draft him up? Are we still looking at that battle for that sixth spot?
Yeah, absolutely. Because that last spot is the special teams player. And that's going to be Stevenson over Kumra right now. Does McKenzie do kickoffs and Stevenson do punts?
Yeah.
It's going to be something that we're all in the media are going to spend way too much time talking about for someone who's not going to see the field very much. But that's just because we loved almost every single player on this team, because Brandon Beane has built a team that we've all fallen in love with, and every single player we can get behind and we want to root for. So it's going to be a really frustrating next week. But I haven't actually said anything.
So if you go,
I haven't said anything. So I think Kumro is going to get cut, honestly, because I think that he doesn't do anything on special teams where McKenzie and Stevenson do. And I think that they're going to take Stevenson, the rookie, who has more of a ceiling, versus Kumro, which is what we know we're going to get.
Yeah. So
maybe he's practice squad, but I mean, obviously he's been snapped up off our practice squad last year. So, we put him on the practice squad and we just see what happens.
So one last question. Obviously, the way this offense actually rolled and moved about was actually with quick passes and quick releases. It's going to be a nightmare now for teams, especially when you've got Diggs, Beasley.
Can't wait. Week 1, please.
Who can do those? I put this out on social media yesterday. I want to know what yours from that Bears game. Whose stock, you can give me a couple if you want, that went up and who went down, in your opinion?
I don't have an answer for that because, it plays into putting too much stock into a preseason game. Give me one more week. Give me that next preseason game, because at this point, like I said, Kumro's probably gonna get cut. That's how I feel right now. So his stock is down. I mean, I would only want to do stock up, stock down for players who are on the bubble.
Okay, so
that's why I want one more preseason game. But stock. If I was going to give anybody a stock up, they're players who I know are going to make the roster. So what's the point?
Okay. So if I run through some of the ones that some people have actually sent through to me, some of them are actually on the bubble. You see if you agree with me.
So you tell me what they're saying, and I'll react to that.
So Liam Holmes, he actually said that. Where's it gone? Whoop. There it is. That one there. He's got Russo, Epinesa, who are roster locks anyway.
Yeah.
They had Gillum stock up, Hollister stock up, Stevenson stock up.
Yeah, I mean, they've all earned, their chance. Absolutely.
Mark Robbins went stock up, Trubisky, Epinesa, Stevenson. He said Jake Kumaro, his stock went up, but his stock down was Saran Neal, the third team O-line, so pretty much the interior, and all that.
But you can't cut all those guys.
Yeah, and obviously Gillum, he missed out, had is a stock up.
Yeah.
Dave Sexton actually said up is Spencer Brown, Epinesa, Russo, Stevenson, Gillum, and Smith. That's Andre Smith Jr. Down, Knox, Neal, Hack, Devi, From, and Webb.
Yeah, I mean, all that makes sense. The players who stock up played in the first half. The players who stock down played in the second half.
And Colt Schroeder actually said Vernon Butler, stock down, he's out.
Yeah,
think we
I mean,
discussed
I
that.
completely agree with that.
Yeah, so it's going to be interesting with the last preseason game next week. Again, another 6 o'clock one. Will we see Christian Wade? It'd be good to see him. He was suited up. Obviously, he didn't play.
Yeah,
Still lagging with a bit of a shoulder injury. But my personal feeling is that they're actually saving him for that home game
yeah.
and actually let him run on there because Singletary's pretty much not going to play that.
Sure. I would imagine
Development.
Singletary and Moss don't play that game at all.
So you're going to see a lot more of,
A lot of
hopefully,
Breida.
a lot more weight. And this is the game where really these bubble players
Oh, yeah.
are going to be on the clock.
Yeah,
put
a
it that
lot
way.
of players just had their last opportunity. You know, it's scary to be a player in the NFL, and you know, at least this year they got a shot, whereas last year
Yeah.
they didn't. So I think we'll have a reaction show probably on Wednesday after the Tuesday cuts come out.
Yeah. So get dropped down to 10 on from Tuesday to 75. Is there anything else you want to add before we sign off?
No, other than the fact that thank you for listening this far into the show, and we have 2 spots left in our UK Bills Fantasy Football League on Yahoo. So get a hold of us on Twitter or Facebook if you want to join in.
Cool. So as I say, for me, just keep following us, keep subscribing on YouTube at Buffalo Bills UK. Find us on all your podcast platforms and just search Red, White, and Buffalo Blues. Do check out Bills from Afar, our sister podcast with Tim and Charlie. I mean, I've listened to many of those episodes on there, and it's great to hear from other people not based in the US actually how they became Bills fans. I mean, I had a guy from Norway, they had a guy from Australia,
That's
they
awesome.
again a guy from Germany in there. They want to talk to someone from Mexico, so it's interesting to see how they get on. You can find them at Bills from Afar on Twitter. They recently had Nick Manning on there, and
The OG.
yeah. So give them a like, give them a follow, definitely give them a listen.
Oh, in the last 2 weeks, I've seen in Cambridge 2 people wearing Bills gear. So yeah, Bills Mafia in the UK, wear your gear out. Let people know that Bills Mafia is in the UK. You love to see it. I saw last night WWE SummerSlam, some guy in the front row wearing a Allen jersey and a Bills hat. You love to see it.
It wasn't Alan, was it?
It wasn't Allen. No, he was busy.
No, it's keep following. I mean, let us know where you come from. We want to hear from you. Our sister podcast want to hear from you. Wherever you are in the UK, tweet us at UK_Bills at RWBB_podcast.
Yeah, rock
Just
that
get
share
out
button
there.
more
Let's
than
grow
anything.
this
Rock that
foundation.
share button and let's grow the community.
So all I can say is now for Alex, this has been Matt. You've been listening to Red Wine Buffalo Blues. And good morning, good afternoon, good evening. Thank you for listening, and go Bills.
Go Bills.